You're listening to Never Heard of It, a Night Shift Radio production. So I see you got a haircut.
I did.
It looks very nice.
Thank you. Yeah, it was time. I was going to try to wait until I could go back to my regular stylist, but who knows how long that was going to be. And meanwhile,
Right.
Even though she no longer practices, Ellen is still technically a licensed cosmetologist. So, do you want me to cut your hair? Yeah, I do. I want that.
Yeah, that's not exactly like a field where like it changes. You know, it's not like, well, I worked in IT in the 90s. Like, how much has possibly changed? That's that. You know, like hair's the same. I mean, the styles may change, but the general practice is still there. That's like one of those, once you know it, you know, you kind of know it.
Yeah. And, in this case, I also just wanted to take it really short and start over.
So, yeah. It looks good. I dig it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so, you know those times when you've got a problem and like the solution is really obvious, but it just doesn't click. And then when you finally think of it, you're like, God damn it. Like it was there all along.
Yeah.
So that a couple times recently, but like most obviously in that, my desk, whenever I would like, I'd bring it down, like all the way down to like sit. And, this chair that I'm borrowing from Ellen's desk was still just like way too short. And even like the stool that I got, my TikTok stool that I was loving was still just like, it was a little bit too short. I couldn't quite make it work with the desk. And then it finally occurred to me, I still have the wheels on it. And those give like easily like 3 inches of height. So I took everything off the desk today, picked it on its side, took the wheels off, put it down, and turns out it's exactly the right without them.
That's amazing. It was just staring at you the entire time, and you were like, "What? What could I possibly do?"
Which I liked having the wheels on them in the old place because we moved around at least a few times. But like now that I'm here, there was really no need to have them because it goes up high enough for me standing. I'm not exactly a tall person, so like it's high enough for me standing, and I don't need to move the desk around. I mean, this is our forever home, so
right.
The desk can stay where it is. So there we go.
Nice. Yeah. Plus, I feel like, from what I've seen and what you've described of your setup, I feel like it is in a really, good spot. And if you do need to move it, just I can pick it up and move it,
Yeah, it's not that hard. I mean, the desk isn't that heavy, and I did keep the wheels if I needed to put them back on for some reason. So I just
there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
But we're not here to talk about home improvement and moving around desk. No, in fact, we are here to talk about movies. Hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast. I'm your host, Michael Fight.
And I'm the heckin' best.
So all full disclosure, we did intend on talking about another movie. We had talked about it last week. We were going to talk about this movie Turk 182, which was one of our listener requests. Unfortunately, the movie is just not available anywhere. Like we found some pretty janky like versions on YouTube, but it was like playlist versions, so we weren't exactly like it wasn't exactly a version where we could just like go and watch and and know that the whole movie was going to be there. So it was kind of a weird scenario in which we just kind of had to do our best and see what was available. So we decided we made the executive decision we're going to skip this one. And we were going to go to our next on our list, which was actually recommended to us via Twitter by Helen. So they recommended that we watch the movie Psycho Goreman, which actually has just came out like only last month, about a month ago. So this is a fairly new movie. That being said, it is at the moment only available on demand. You do have to rent it. I think on iTunes in America it was $7 to rent and $13 to own.
Yeah, that jives with Google TV as well. It was $6.99 and or something like that, $14.99.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, not bad.
So sorry for the change of plans here. Hopefully you guys listened to our trailer episode a couple of days ago and got the heads up or went to our website. So that being said, if you didn't learn about or listen to our trailer episode, that means you're probably not subscribed, which means you are missing out on tons of things. Something we learned specifically for Apple Podcasts and probably for some of the other catchers as well is that if you don't subscribe, you won't see any of our trailer or bonus episodes that we post to our public feed. So make sure you do that now. Go ahead and subscribe or hit follow or whatever it is, because you're probably missing out on our trailer episodes. You're probably missing out on our bonus episodes. So that's something you definitely want to do now. And of course, if you want even more bonus episodes, you want to head over to Patreon, patreon.com/listen, man, I tell you,
more
patreon.com/night shift radio, where you can get bonuses from all of the night shift radio shows. So definitely check that out. But you can actually get our episodes early as well as some bonus things. Just about a week ago, we posted one where Caleb tried to convince me to watch the Chronicles of Narnia BBC series from 1988, to which my girlfriend was like, yes, 100%.
Yes!
We are watching it. She says that her favorite is the Beaver family.
Oh my god, the beavers! The ones I was telling you, like humans in like big brown, like pod-shaped suits.
I love it. Yeah, no, she was all for it. Yeah, so that'll be a thing. Yeah, but Caleb, I mentioned the website. So what's the deal with our website?
Yeah, well, hopefully by the time people hear this, I will have remembered to update it to account for today's change. But that said, if you were to visit thenahoit.com, that's THENHOIT.com, you can check out our schedule of upcoming episodes each month, as well as links to trailers and where you can find the movies streaming if available. As we said, today's is not, nor was I don't think last week's was either. Last week, if we're being honest.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it was the sci-fi one. Yeah.
That's that's right. It was only on like the NBC app and like some madness like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then just below that, we're talking about doing listener requests this month. If you have movies that you want us to talk about, you can drop us a line through our contact form, which is just below the monthly schedule. But Michael, you mentioned that people request via Twitter sometimes. How would they do that?
Yeah, so if you actually go to the Nahoit podcast, that's the NHOIT. Yeah, the NHOIT podcast on both Twitter and Instagram. You can tag us in trailers and things like that. Like we said, this one was sent to us via a follower, a listener of ours, and they tagged us in this, and they were like, "Yo, you should totally watch this movie, Psycho Goreman. Totally think you guys would dig it." And let me tell you, Helen, you were correct. This was a fucking great movie. But that's a really great way if you see a trailer or of like a really indie, like this is a cool low budget indie film out of Canada, like this is where to send us those. I mean, we've had tons in the past. Fat Man, we did what was the other one there, Velocipaster, like those are all ones in the past that people have tagged us and brought attention to us. So definitely do that. We will literally do any movie you tweet at us, assuming it falls into a category that we can and it's not a movie we've already done. We've done like 180 episodes, so there's a lot of movies. But yeah, so there's a really great way, and of course, drop us a follow while you're over there. So Psycho Goreman, as we mentioned, is so. Full disclosure: when I first heard about this movie, I saw maybe a very edited trailer or something like that. Maybe it was more like a teaser trailer. I actually thought this was something more akin to like an E.T. or a Mac and Me or something like that. I did not know that this was a straight up gory ass film.
Oh my god.
I was not prepared.
I don't know if this was a like a Shudder original, but did you see like the opening credits? It started with the Shudder logo, so pretty sure it had to have been somehow related. That's how I knew it was going to be full on horror.
Yeah, I have to say, so we are two Shudder exclusives in now. First one being Scare Me, and now this. But I gotta tell you, they have 100% success ratio with me. Because the of the two movie like Shudder exclusives I've seen, they've both been absolutely phenomenal. So like, kudos to Shudder, you guys are killing it over there.
Well, and don't forget that the Color Out of Space was also on Shutter at one point. Now, I took the plunge and I bought that, but like for people who have Shutter, you can see Nick Cage in all of his phosphorescent glory.
Yeah, I want to see the movie that's out as well. That came out right around the same time as this, in Willy in Wonderland or something like that. But it's Nick Cage basically fighting against the animatronic things from Chuck E. Cheese. Basically, I want to watch that. Yeah, whatever that is, I want in on that. That's a thing.
Yeah, I was trying to go for the lower light ambience rather than the like just washed out look that I've been getting on camera lately, but it's too dark and I'm not feeling it. So I'm gonna step over and turn the light on real quick.
Yeah, that's for those of you guys watching on YouTube. We're on the Night Shift Radio YouTube channel. For those of you watching, you will notice that Caleb's video is flickering a little bit. We're just having a weird connection issue, but all the audio is perfectly fine because we're dope like that.
Hell yeah.
So stick with it. It'll be worth it. We promise. But yeah, so see, that looks really good. Plus, the colors of the blanket on your couch, like the quilt, very nice. Yeah,
my mom made that. Very nice.
They pop. Yeah,
there's lots of color in this room. I've been very pleased with how we did here.
Yeah, no, you did good. You bought a good house, Caleb. You bought a good house. Yeah. So Psycho Goreman starts, and we see the two main characters, which are young kids, which again is the reason why I kind of thought this was more of like a fun little, like just like a weird movie about like a kid's movie. But it is very much not a kid's movie. This is a very R-rated, gory movie. It is not for kids, even though it stars kids. So we see the two main characters, which is Mimi and Luke. And I should have made the joke of like Mimi and her brother, and
me and boy,
I don't know. Yeah, so Mimi and Luke are siblings. I would say they're roughly in the 9 to 12 range. They're probably right around that, and they're off playing in the backyard, being as siblings do, and they decide to dig a hole, and very messed up. So they actually come across a thing in the ground, and it's very reminiscent. So the thing about this movie is this is pretty much like, what if the Power Rangers monsters all landed on Earth, but there was no such thing as Power Rangers? That's like exactly what this movie is.
See, I was thinking this is somewhere between like Hellraiser, Doctor Who, and like an 80s like kids adventure.
Yeah. I mean, there's yeah. I mean, like, first off, kudos to the monster creature effects people. Very, very good job. Yeah, I mean, the costumes are, they are very reminiscent of those like Ultraman, early Doctor Who, or I guess even somewhat New Who stuff, but it's pretty cool. So they come across the Rita Repulsa canister that the Archbishop of Nightmares is in. But what's great about this movie? So this movie started off with one of those old fashioned like 90s, like sorcery like crawls in the beginning. This is like, in the beginning there was only death and destruction and an evil being, and it has like the very medieval writing. It was just, as soon as that rolled, I was like, all right, this is gonna be a great movie. Like, I know exactly what I'm getting myself into, and you have a customer, sir.
Well, like, because it starts with the kids playing a game that they've made up called Crazy Ball, which is somewhat reminiscent of dodgeball, but with just an absurd number of rules and It reminded me of something else, and I can't remember now. Oh, it reminded me of Charlie McDennis. It just kind of
What
felt
is
like
that?
from Always Sunny, where they make
Oh,
their own game, and all the rules are
yeah.
just absolutely absurd, and like it's just this endless list that somehow they remember, and nobody else can make sense of.
Yeah.
But
What is
yeah,
a
so
jumping jack?
they're playing this game, and Mimi wins, and so she said loser has to dig their own grave, and Luke's like, that seems fair. Just to me, that's the moment that set the tone. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And so as he's digging, he
It's
digs and
enormous hole,
finds
by the way. You
yeah.
dig like you could put a fucking car in the hole that they dug in their parents' backyard.
Well, I just love that when they come out, they're like, he's like, the dad was like, wow, good size hole. And they was
Yeah.
like, no, no. And the mom was like, no, this is bad. He was like, well, I think you did a good job. It's very funny. The mom and dad dynamic, by the way, was absolutely spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
It was very like, I mean, it was very like cliche because it was like the aloof dad who, was the loser guy, and then the mom who just wants sanity and everything to be sane, very gender normed, stereotypical type things, but it still was very amusing. I still
Mm-hmm.
thought it was very funny, just because they also played it to the absolute extreme with the dad, and
Yes.
the mom was the only one who was like, am I crazy or is literally everyone else crazy?
It's like this entire family, like nothing is like weird to them. Like the craziest shit
Right.
is happening. Like even just like the kids playing this bizarre game and like digging a massive hole in the backyard and like getting just absolutely filthy and whatnot. The parents are just like, you know what time it is? It's 9 o'clock, time for bed. And then like the kids have this like language that they knock to communicate through the wall, and the mom apparently is in on it because she knocks it like, go to sleep now. And like, eventually they find the PG, and like that's not weird, and like something crazy happens to like Luke's best friend, and that doesn't shock anyone. Like nothing phases this family. It's all just totally normal to them. Like what has happened
What
in
is
this
happening?
household?
The knocking on the wall thing was really funny because he was like, do you think that's where they buried grandma? The brother and sister are talking. The sister was like, no, I told you, grandma is in hell forever. And that's when the mom's like, go to sleep. It was like, what? It's just so messed up.
like like real talk, kids in movies usually annoy the shit out of me, but these two were fucking great.
No, they were definitely great. Now, I will say, so the person that played Mimi is Nita Josie Hannah,
Mm-hmm.
and she's only been in a few things, but it definitely there was some ADR with this because there was many times where she was speaking, and I was like, is that actually her talking? Like it didn't exactly match. Like it didn't look like it matched the environment, and like at first I was kind of like, is this actually her? Did they hire someone else to like voice over her thing? But it seems like it was they just, I don't know, bad ADR, I guess, where they voiced over the lines that were recorded live in the field because for some reason the audio didn't work, it didn't mix well, so they re-record them and match them to the lips. That's what ADR means.
Yeah.
Um,
Only other acting credit is actually a Hulu original called Books of Blood, also from 2020.
nice. So
Yeah.
she's racking up those IMDb credits.
Getting the fucking horror movies out of the way
Right,
early.
right. Now, I will say she is absolutely great in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she's just fantastic. I mean, she was really funny. Like her timing was really great. She pulls off everything like really well. Like late in the movie, she has a conversation with Jesus, and she was with like a crucifix, and then she was like, "Ha, just kidding," because there's a new god in town, and smashes the crucifix, and it was just spectacular.
Like, I'm sorry that I don't always listen, but you know what? I do what I want.
Yeah, right. Because I'm the champion. Absolutely spectacular. So they dig up this thing just before they go to bed, and Mimi grabs there's like a bunch of little buttons, and she just sort of clicks all the buttons. What was that thing called? The beep boop
The
bop boop boop that toy used to have? Simon
like
Says.
Simon? Yeah.
Yeah, Simon. It was like a Simon game where she just like blah 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 picks the buttons and then takes the gem off the top of it, which of course unlocks the canister, which of course frees the Archbishop of Nightmares. To which he wanders off, and we get this scene of these people in a shoe factory, an old rundown shoe factory, where it's like the Fagin of the group is letting everyone know, like, this is a terrible, like, you think this is a good robbing thing, like you should have done something else, and it's just like some old hobo guy being like, well, I thought it was good, and then in walks our creature, and oh boy, this is where I was like, oh, this is a violent movie.
Oh, so it's three like thieves essentially holed up in this old factory, and he walks up, and like the leader tries to confront him and just smacks him out of the way, and like hits his head on like a steel beam or whatever, and like falls down. And he walks over and picks the other two up by their throats and just removes their heads very casually, and then turns to the leader, and the guy's like, please, I don't want to die. And he's like, then live forever. And like he does this like crazy Hellraiser torment stuff where like he suspends him in like a permanent state of like perpetual torture. I'm like, oh God, oh no, I should not have eaten right before this movie. You'd later see that
terribly violent.
He's like they walk back into the factory, and there's like a rack in the back where like various body parts are just like spread out on display.
Oh. Yeah, there's a lot of like I would almost akin it to like Tokyo Gore monster films. Like they're just like the creatures are just over the top and grotesque. Like there's one creature we meet later who is literally just a metal bucket of body parts and blood. Like that's what their entity is.
So I think we've had this conversation before, how there was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figure that was like a person whose like body had dissolved or something like that, and they were literally just organs in like a human suit. And I'm not talking about Krang, who was the alien brain inside the robot. Like this was like an actual like human who had been reduced to, like, you could see like the eyes and like nervous system and stuff like that, just all in this like plastic suit. And there was a guy amongst like the alien council or whatever that was like that. Like he had like a glass dome, and like inside was just like like a brain with eyes, and like nightmares.
Yeah, he was pretty filthy, and he had the best part in the mid credits scene.
Yes. I'm just I will say I'm glad I watched this movie at almost 40 and not as like a young kid, because as like schlocky as it was, it would have scarred the shit out of me.
Oh my God. I mean, like, I was into weird shit, but man, this one would have given me nightmares. I probably will still have a nightmare about this movie, very specifically. Like, I just know I'm going to hear a voice in the middle of the night be like, then die a champion's death. And we're like, fuck, what? It's gonna be,
you've entered the realm of nightmares where we can communicate in private. No, I don't want this. I don't
want this at all. So at this point, we've got Mimi and her brother, Mimi and Luke. They see the hole in the morning, and they're like, oh shit, like we got to figure out what's going on. And they see that there are like tracks leading out from this. They're like, cool, let's follow these tracks. So they follow the tracks. They get into the shoe factory, and they see the Archbishop of Nightmares, and he gives them the big speech. And just as he's about to destroy them, Mimi tells him to stop. And she notices that his face starts glowing all like reddish pink. And Luke points out that the gem that was on top of the canister is glowing inside of her pocket. And so what she learns essentially is that whoever controls the gem basically can control this monster, basically the Archbishop of Nightmares. It can control what he does from Gygax.
Yeah, from the planet Gygax, of course, named after Gary Gygax.
Yeah, there was a lot of references. Did you see that the school was named after Spangler? It was called like the Spangler Elementary Middle School or something.
The town was like Spangler Springs or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So the creature gives like his entire backstory about how he was born on the planet Gygax in a time before time, and his people were enslaved by this race called the Templars, who thought they had a holy purpose, and they forced their religion on us and made us work. And until one day I found this gem and it gave me powers, and I rose up and I slayed them by the thousands and freed my people and realized that my only purpose was to bring destruction on the whole world or on the universe or whatever, which is great and all, like fantastic backstory, like
Yeah.
good on you, man, like rise up, like kill everyone. It's, I get it, you've got some anger issues, you got to kill like the galaxy, sure. What I don't get is that he talks about the gem being the source of his power, but then like without it he still has power, but people can control him to an extent with the gem.
So I think it kind of works very similar to the Enchantress in Suicide Squad.
Okay,
So I think
go
it's
on.
like it's his heart, but if you hold, like, if you have Enchantress's heart, like you can make her do whatever you want, because like you're in charge of like what gives her her life. So it can exist outside of her body, because like it's like an entity. Think like a Horcrux type thing too. Like it exists there,
Sure.
but like it's what, like, but if you hold it, like you could, I guess smash it or whatever. But I think it has some sort of possession power.
Well, the gem existing outside of his body, like I have no trouble believing that. It's the fact that like he found it and derived like his strength and his powers from that, but then like you take it away from him and he can still like you send a being into like a realm of eternal torment with a glance, which apparently were powers he did not have previous to finding the gem.
Would seemingly, yeah. I will say though that I guess it probably granted him those powers, but like he still, because in the end we learned that he is susceptible to damage and being hurt without the gem actually in his body, and the gem going back into his body kind of like revitalizes him.
Yeah,
So
I wonder if it's
there's
something
like shaky logic.
there are ways that they could explain this. This is one of those movies where it was like roughly an hour and a half long, and they maybe could have put a little bit more into it. Like it works fine without any additional exposition, but like it wouldn't have hurt to have some. Because I could see it being like, after so long of like him using the gem, he kind of like became one with it, or like absorbed its powers or something like that. It changed who he is fundamentally. I could see that, but like they offer no such explanation, which left me like, how the fuck? I'm sorry, how the frig?
So Canadian. Yeah, no, I definitely feel it, and I think backstory too. They did just enough to make the movie be interesting without it being like, well, wait, tell me more, or being like, wait, who are these people and what is going, like it was just enough to make it so you're like, cool, that was all I needed. Like I don't want more. I didn't feel like you didn't give me enough. Like you gave me the exact amount enough where I didn't care about that so much as like everything that was happening right now. Because there's a lot of movies that do that, and you're like, go back. I want to know everything about this backstory, because it's either more interesting than what's happening right now, or you feel like you need more in order to understand what's happening. But this was it was just good enough. It was the Goldilocks.
One thing I will say is that this is the first movie we've watched in a long time where I didn't tap the screen to check the time remaining, not even once. I just watched the movie the entire way through.
Yeah, I mean, it flows really well. There never was a part where I was like, oof, like there's never like that drag in the middle, right?
How much longer is this shit?
Right, where they're just like sitting and talking or something. Like everything is funny, and it is because like there was, so like there's a really great scene just after what we're talking about now, and she's explaining to after they name him Psycho Goreman, like she's like, no, we're gonna call you Psycho Goreman, or PG for short. She's like, you're gonna sit here and wait for us and don't leave, and here I brought you these magazines with these hunky boys, and he's like, I don't care about hunky boys, or do I? And that was like it's those like setups and lines, and there's a bunch of them throughout the movie that was just fucking phenomenal. Perfect. Flawless.
Yeah. He takes one look at a dude like shirtless in the magazine. He's like,
Or do I? It was really great.
I just love when she's like, sorry, I couldn't get you any pornos.
Right. She's like, what? She's like, but here's a bunch of hunky boys in a magazine. It was so good.
They leave him an old like probably like 15-inch CRT television. Like, here, like, we can watch TV and learn how to be nice or whatever.
Yeah.
And as soon as they leave, he's like, oh, energy flows through this box, and like he reaches out through like the electrosphere or whatever to contact his army, the Paladins of Obsidian or whatever they call themselves, and it's like, I've been freed. I'm on this planet of meat children. Like, you must come here. And like, meanwhile, there's just like blood flowing down the TV screen. And there's a great callback to that later where the father is there and he's like trying to make the TV work. He's like, well, that TV won't stop bleeding.
it was such a great callback. Oh boy. There was, in that same part where they first meet him, Luke like does something and it messes up the guy that's in the endless torturous nightmare.
He bumps into him.
And he bumps into it and he goes like, no, my great piece of art.
The guy like falls to the ground and just like splatters like into 100 pieces, and you just see like the jaw piece just slowly move, like, thank you.
So gross. So wonderful.
So gross.
It is. So before we go to a break, I do want to acknowledge, so this movie was written and directed by Steven Kostanski, and Steven Kostanski actually did a movie called The Void, which is the weirdest fucking movie I have ever seen. And we should either watch it, or that might end up being a bonus one where I convince you to watch it.
I've seen this poster before.
Yeah, dude, this movie is so fucking weird. But there is a really cool person in this, which actually relates back to our just a couple of weeks ago, where most of Night Shift Radio did a crossover event on Scott Pilgrim. Ellen Wong, who played Knives Chow in Scott Pilgrim, is actually in this movie.
So she is.
The Void. Yeah, and it is very on par to this film in terms of the gore. The humor, not so much. It is a very weird fucking movie, and it is actually it was kind of creepy, but it's a weird fucking movie. But yeah, so Ellen Wong is in fact in this movie, and it's actually I actually really like this movie. It was really fucking weird, but
what's a bit of trivia I would like to find out? I want to know how many movies we've done where like you look at like the writer, director, whatever, and you haven't seen another movie by them, or like you've not seen any member of the cast in anything else. Because I feel like every fucking time you're like, oh yeah, this was written by Steven Kostanski, and fun fact, he did this movie, and like, what?
So the answer to that question is Escape 2022 or 2021 or 2120 or something like that. Where I'd never heard of fucking anybody in that movie or anything. That is the answer to that trivia question. So when Night Shift Radio Trivia Night eventually happens, hopefully nobody listened to this episode, because that is the answer. Which is pretty spectacular. So we're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we will continue on with Psycho Goreman. Hello and welcome back. Here we are with Psycho Goreman. So now it's the fun of Mimi with PG.
So I'm looking at one of the stills, and I can't get over the scene where they had him dressed up like Alan Grant.
It was spectacular.
Like right down to like the same like khakis, like denim button up, and the like red ascot and the fedora, like the whole works.
The sunglasses. Like, he even has the same sunglasses that, the famous ones that he rips off his head.
Just straight up Alan Grant. And this is fucking great.
Oh, so Alan Grant and Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum, but he was in the last one, are coming back for Jurassic World 3 Dominion. They're all going to be in that one.
Very excited, and apparently they have like sizable parts and not just cameos.
Like
So,
Jeff Goldblum did in the second one. Yeah.
yeah.
Where he was just at like the deposition thing.
Also related to Jurassic Park, our friends over at Good Morning Nancy recently covered Jurassic Park for their podcast, and it's
nice.
one of the best breakdowns of that movie that I've ever heard in my life. And
that's
like,
pretty exciting.
Easily one of my favorite movies of all time. Like one of the ones that I've seen the most. Like saw it in theater as a kid, read the book sevens of times. Love the story, but hearing like a completely different take on it was really great.
That's all. You know, Jurassic Park is one of those movies that I watch it now, and even now I'm like, dude, those dinosaurs are so fucking real looking. Like it's just looks so good. And I look at, you know, we've talked about it before. We have talked about this many times before.
Mm-hmm.
But if you compare it to movies, even of the same budget size, of that same, like, you know, within a year or two of that film being released, and it is miles apart. Like miles apart. It is crazy what they accomplished in that film.
Well, it's the insistence on like two main things in particular. I mean, the use of like animatronics for practical effects rather than CG wherever possible, with some very notable exceptions. The flock of Gallimimus was all CG, but then the idea of treating them and making them look and feel like animals and not monsters was like really important, and that. It works so well. It holds up so well.
Yeah. Wow. Fantastic. But anyways, go check out their podcast to hear them talk about it. And I don't know, we're going to talk about this movie about an alien monster that rips people's heads off and eats them. Yeah. So you have chosen your podcast well. So at this point, we have a bunch of montage scenes of things like, Mimi, Luke, and their friend, playing games with PG. This is the scene where, the friend is like, hey, I think I'm going to go. And, Mimi, we kind of see Mimi's side of like wanting to always be the best and everyone pay attention to her, like wanting that attention and stuff like that. And she's like, no, teach him a lesson. And he turns him into a giant brain monster.
So, Mimi's got a little bit of a crush on Alistair. Like she won't admit it. And at one point she's like, no, we're just friends who are going to get married and live together forever and hate each other, just like mom and dad. Or something like that. And, she's like, PG, can you make him more fun, make him stop being so lame, and like make him stay and throw basketballs at Luke with me. And PG, he's like, I once like helped the Lord of the the Darklands be smitten by the woman he liked. I fucking don't remember the quote. It doesn't matter. But he basically talks about like making someone fall in love with someone else, and he's like, do you want me to do that? And she's like, yes. And his response is to turn him into a giant fucking brain, a brain that is larger than Alistair was to begin with.
Right. Oh god, it was just so fucking weird and gross.
Alistair's just like, do you think I'll ever be normal again? And she's like, probably not, but I like you just the way you are. And she like kisses the brain. Oh, God. And again, nobody thinks this is weird.
Nobody thinks it's weird.
Parents, not Alistair's parents, like not the cops that they see later on. Like nobody thinks it's weird that Alistair's just a giant brain now.
And like the crazy thing about it too is that like, we talked about his parents at the end of the movie. She's like, Alistair, honey, come down for dinner. And just he waddles up as the brain and gets up on the table and his tentacles are slapping the food around. And the parents are just like, just eating.
Nobody
not even blinking at this. Fucking phenomenal. Absolutely fantastic. So what we learned, after all of our fun little montage scenes in the middle there, of them like learning about Crazy Ball and the rest of the world and stuff like that, is we learn that the Paladins have learned where PG is, and now they're planning to basically get to Earth. So one of the Paladins, the lead one, Pandora, summons just a random Earth person to their ship. Yeah.
The Paladins are his
Oh, I'm sorry.
evil
Yeah.
army, the
The Templars.
Council of guys or whatever, who's led by Pandora, who's a Templar. Yes.
Yes.
There's a lot of nonsense to keep straight.
It is. It's great though. So the Templars, find their, learn that he's there. They summon a random Earth creature, and the main, the leader of the Templars, Pandora, is basically takes this person's shape, to go down to Earth to find. Yeah, she turns it into a meat cube. Oops, all meat. She turns it into a meat cube and just smashes it, and then turns herself
on
into
her face, and she, starts to her costume starts to strip away, and she becomes the human. It even grosses out the other people, the other aliens in the room.
So we know that they're coming down to find PG to kill him. But in the meanwhile, who comes down is actually the Paladins, who is PG's army. So he had called out to them and he was like, "Hi, hey, I'm here. Come get me. 2 children are in possession of the gem. Kill them, give me the gem, and then we can go fuck shit up again." So the Paladins come down, and this is an army of Power Rangers villains show up, and they're like, "Aha, you're here." And he's like, "Great, kill these kids, give me the gem back." And Mimi's like, "What the frig, man?" And so they were like, "No, actually, we're here to kill you because we took over this planet, and actually we're having a pretty good time, and look, we share the crown. Every day somebody else gets to be king." And he was like, "What the hell?" So he was like, "Give me the gem." And she was like, "Screw you, man, you were about to kill me." She's like, "Now I'm gonna let them kill you, see how you like it." So all these Paladins, they just beat him up.
It.
Yeah. Oh, this is where we get the creepy people. There was some creepy people there.
There was the bucket of meat. There was the witch with the shrunken head staff.
Yeah.
There was metal Roman guy, Cassius 3000.
Which was great. Except for you, Cassius. I knew I couldn't trust you.
I knew I couldn't trust you. There was, of course, Darkscream, who was the current leader.
Yeah.
And then I guess plant person with dreadlocks.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, and there was the gravestone person who would throw just tombstones at people. Just throw tombstones. The best thing about Tombstone person is that the way to kill them is he ripped open the tombstone's chest and pulled out a single rose from his chest that was his heart, and he crushed it in his hand. And that's how you defeat Tombstone person, who was just great. Which begs the difference. That so what other planet is just walking around planting tombstones for their dead? That's a pretty universal thing. Oh wait, so one of my this is flashing back a little bit, but one of my really favorite lines is so at one point Mimi has the stone, and she summons PG to her house.
Yes.
And so he shows up, and she's like, "Took you long enough." Or she was like, "About time." And he was like, "What you know about time, time is just a construct invented. And, once you've gone to the 9th dimension, you'll understand that time is just a primitive thing. Also, I got lost." It was just spectacular. It was lines like that just make this movie brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Relevant to the scene with the Paladins, there was a side scene where they're all just sitting and eating at a diner, and he picks up his entire plate and unhinges his jaw and crumbles plate and all into his face. And Luke was like, "I wish I could do that." And he's like, "What? Where I come from, eating is more than just sustenance. The most noble way for a warrior to die is to be eaten by his opponent," or something like that. And so, of course, when he finally defeats Darkscream as the last of his former paladins, he's like, "Now I will give you a warrior's death." And Darkscream's like, no.
And he unhinges his jaw and just devours him up.
Starts from that's what, honestly, that's the part that's gonna give me nightmares. The warrior's death,
because it happens a couple of times, and that's and then there's also a scene just before this too, where they're all playing, the brain kids there, and they're playing basketball, and two cops roll up and they're like, whoa, my God. And they're like, kids, get out of the way. And the one's like, no time. And they just start shooting at PG. And of course, he takes the one and he basically turns him inside out into like a zombie type inside out person, and then sends the other one away. Is like, tell the message to Earth's defenders that this is what will happen to them. And he's like, now this one's going to follow me around. And he's just like, brrr. All the time.
Like, basically melts him, and like he's got like his gun in his hand when he does it, which I mean the gun was out of bullets before he melts him, but like he's able to shoot just at random throughout the rest of the movie with the gun that's melted to his hand. At one point he like tries to kill himself with it, but of course he can't. He's like
that's great. So then when the paladins come, the zombie guy's there shooting at him, and he stabs him through the heart or through the eyes with some guy's arms. It was great.
He takes the witch's staff and like breaks it and stabs it. It's
my God, it was so good.
Weird and gory and gross.
So at this point, we see that PG is severely injured, and they're like, "What is going on?" And he was like, "Oh, like they must have known that my only weakness is my blood, and so they've cursed all their weapons with my blood, and so I'm dying, and only the gem, will help me." And they were like, "You gotta save me, and you gotta get it back." And so he was like, she was like, I don't know. So he was like, well, they're like, we got to bring him back to the shoe factory to heal him. Like, let's get him out of there. And this is also a great scene. So at this point, this has happened where the mother and father have this argument, and the mom is like, you're lazy. And he was like, what? I hurt my hand shoveling. And, and it was, it's just leading up to this. So they're basically fighting at the moment. And so the dad is on the toilet, like having the conversation, like, the after the fact conversation.
Yes.
He's like, no, you listen. And he's like saying it, and PG's face blasts, and he's like, bah, you must come get me, blah, blah, blah. He was like, well, I don't even know where you are. And then it comes back again, and the face is like, I'm on the corner of blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay. And he's like, wait, I don't know how to get there. And he's like, when you get to this one place, you gotta turn left, or if you've gone here, you've gone too far. Very, very funny. And the scene was just brilliant. And so off the father goes. Now, in the meantime, the mom gets a special visitor.
Oh yeah, she's met by Pandora in human form, who wins her over to the Templar cause. Because at this point, the mom has finally started to accept that like something's a little bit off about
maybe
my
we
child's
should.
Friend. This monster that my child has been hanging around with, maybe isn't the best of influences, and. The dad, after this big fight, this big fallout, sides with Mimi and Psycho Goreman, PG, and Luke, who feels like Mimi's been kind of bullying him and bossing him around and never listening to him, sides with his mom and the Templar, and so we have the final showdown.
Dun, 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 dun. So at this point, PG is dying, and he's like, listen, Mimi, you have to give me the rock. And she's like, I don't know, man. If I do that, you're just gonna kill me. And he's like, no, I won't. And the dad gives this story where so the dad pulls Mimi aside, and he's like, listen, when I was about your age, a man pulled up in a big white van and said that I should get in the back and look at his collection of baseball cards. And you know what I did? I got in that van, and that man showed me his huge, giant collection of pristine baseball cards. And you know what? I'm really glad that I trusted that stranger. And he was like, I think I understand. Just, oh, great. And that's where she has her conversation with Jesus, and that's also fantastic. And so off she goes.
But we learned that Luke has actually stolen the gem from Mimi, so she can't give it back to PG. And so Pandora gives the Templar powers apparently to Susan, the mom, and brings Susan and Luke to the shoe factory to collect and kill PG. And she she has him on the on the ropes basically, and he's like, does your code still require to provide a trial by combat when requested? And she's like, you can't beat me, you're nearly dead. He's like, but it won't be hand-to-hand combat. Mimi, you choose the contest. And of course Mimi demands that they play Crazy Ball.
To which we've already had a couple of scenes of Mimi explaining the rules of Crazy Ball and all the wacky things, because there's like, if you get hit, you got to do jumping jacks and spin around, and there's like all these things where it's not like dodgeball where if you get hit you're out. Like, you do these things to basically get back in the game. And one of the big ones is the switcheroo. So essentially, if two opponents throw a ball and the ball hits each other, they then basically, whoever punches the other one first.
It's a great rule.
Right. Essentially, that's like the tiebreaker, and wins. So at one point, so it's Mimi, the dad, and PG versus Luke, Gundam Mom, and Pandora. And so they're battling it out, and Luke and Mimi have this moment, and we've learned that Luke has basically been like, hey, you've been a real jerk to me. Like, you tried to kill me at one point. Like, you're not being a good sister. And so so they're tied at this point. They get the switcheroo. Mimi just hauls off and clocks him right in the gut, knocks him over, and he wins. And so that's PG, she gets the gem, PG gets the gem back, he devours Pandora. But just before he does, Pandora's like, no, this is, like, screw this, I'm just going to go kill him. So she goes to slice PG, but Mimi gets in the way. But Pandora doesn't stop, but Gundam Mom steps in and blocks in and is like, what are you doing? And she's like, blah, I don't care about your kid, I just want to kill this guy. And then in the end, PG makes a sword out of her bones, out of Pandora's bones,
ripping things out of her.
Right. And they fight. And at one point, she like blows up a section of the shoe factory, and the magazine of his thing blows up, and he goes, "No, my hunky boys!" And I love it. It is great. And then he wins, and he devours him, but he did in fact promise that he would not harm them or their family. And then he goes off and just starts blowing up the rest of Earth.
He's like, you've taught me about a new power, the power of love, and I must use this power to destroy the galaxy. And he opens a portal to like downtown Spangler Springs and just starts blasting people. And like later on, you see a news broadcast, and he's like the size of a building, just walking around zapping things.
What is great in the newscast is like, well, it seems what only can be described as a giant naked purple man is walking around blasting most of the town. We don't really know what's going on. More information later. It's fantastic. So it cuts back to scenes of the Templar. So the Templar has been watching this whole thing play out, and one of them was like, "What? So what's a switcheroo?" And the other one's like, "I really just don't understand sports." And then the other was like, "Hey, don't eat all the noodles." And they have the blue noodles that they've been chewing. It's just, there's so many little great things in this movie. It's just, I love it so much. I love this movie so much.
It was pretty great.
Yeah.
Like, well, just before the final Crazy Ball Showdown, and like it's the cut of him saying like, "Mimi, choose the contest," and then it immediately cuts to the teams like squared off against each other, and she's like, "All right, it'll be you and me, and we're Team Hero, and you three are Team Suck." And Pandora's like, "So wait, can you explain the switcheroo again?" She's like, "No, you should have been paying attention."
That's great. And in one scene, like, she gets hit, and she's like, "No, you have to do jumping jack." She's like, "What's a jumping jack again?" Oh, it's absolutely spectacular. So should you watch this movie? Absolutely.
I think so.
If you can handle the gore, totally. I think it is a comedic. I wouldn't say masterpiece is probably going too far,
That's a
but
little
it is
heavy-handed.
it is comedically fantastic. So absolutely do yourself a favor, rent this one. Watch it with your friends virtually if you can, or if you are in a communal space like roommates or something. Definitely watch it with them. You guys will thoroughly enjoy this movie.
It's gross though. It's real gross.
It is gross. It is pretty gross.
Sit through the credits though, because they give us a total like 80s style like recap rap.
Yeah. Which was
Like
and the
Will
music
Smith.
in this was pretty good. There was also like a really great like rock montage, like workout montage style song. I Am the Champion, which is pretty fantastic.
Fun fact: the end credits rap song was by Lil Caesar.
Hey.
Which, yeah, I mean, you know how we love some Little Caesars.
We do. I miss those days of getting crazy bread and doing that. But we'll talk about that in our upcoming bonus episode, which will be the 1-year anniversary episode of Night Shift Radio and the 3-year anniversary episode of Nahoit. 4 years. Well, I guess we'll be going on to our 4th year, so it would be the end of the 3rd year.
Yeah, I can't believe how soon that is. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's in like a couple of weeks. Yeah. So it's going to be pretty wild. So check that out. That's going to be really fun. We're going to have both Kitsy and Andrea on, who are the other members of Night Shift Radio team, the Night Shift Radio management team. And we're going to talk about not only Nahoit, but also everything we did to build up to Night Shift Media Group, which is our parent company that basically runs all of our shows, including Left of the Dial Live and our upcoming show that we'll talk about on that day. We're going to reveal on that day. We're going to announce the other show.
Big news.
So that'll be pretty exciting. So definitely check that one out. And again, you won't see that episode unless you subscribe. So please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already.
Click that button. It costs you nothing.
That's right. Except
unless you have like tendonitis or something like that, and then it might be a little painful, and we understand.
Yeah, you might be able to ask your AI person of choice to do that for you. I'm not sure if that's a thing that they can do.
It's like, I don't want to say it because I have several devices that
I know. I was just thinking that too. I was like, how do I say it without making my devices go off and be like, yes, I will do that. Hey, Apple AI device person, please subscribe to the Night Shift Radio podcast.
I think you're supposed to be able to do that. So,
well, you can. So it is, if you, for both the Apple and the Amazon and the Google one, you can say, hey, insert their name, play the latest episode of the Never Heard of It podcast, and you have a 50-50 chance of it playing our podcast or the other podcast named Never Heard of It.
Sons of bitches.
It works about 50-50 for me. Sometimes it'll play ours and sometimes it'll play theirs, and I'm like, Back to the Future. Everybody's fucking heard of Back to the Future. Why are you talking about this movie?
It's funny. It's kind of the same idea if I try to get it to play Left of the Dial, because it'll start trying to play the I think it's the Clash.
Oh yeah,
because they wrote the song.
Yep.
No, god damn it.
However,
shut up, I hate you.
Set condition 1 works all the time, every time.
Hell
exactly as it should. So thanks a lot for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. We're gonna do something, I don't know, outside of our 1-year anniversary. We'll see what movie we're doing next, but the best way to learn is to subscribe, as we said. Have we drilled it into your heads enough this episode? All right, thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you soon.
Bye.